Hello everyone, welcome to a new video. I'm Mehmet and it's kind of hot in here, so let's make some water but for coffee. And what we have here is a gallon of distilled water, and I wanted to reintroduce you to our Memli Water Kit. And the idea behind creating this kit is that I wanted to play with the little parameters within the water quality. I wanted to see the impact of alkalinity, of the calcium ion, the magnesium, etc., etc. So I've created this kit in-house with lab grade and food grade minerals and high quality distilled water so that I can really play with all those concentrations for my water when I go compete or with different kind of coffees, see the impact of it, doing experimentation, but also with different extraction methods. I have typically a water recipe for filter and espresso, which I will introduce you later on. So how does it work? You have 1 gallon of distilled water. It's very easy. And here you have 3 concentrates. Those are highly concentrated water with specific mineral. And here the idea is that I've created those minerals based on the calcium carbonate hardness, not the general hardness of the milligrams per liter, but it is ppm, part per million, as calcium carbonate, which is the more accurate way to calculate hardness. So what I do first, I start with my alkalinity. I always kind of shake it, it's kind of a habit, but alkalinity is basically your buffer. This is going to play with your level of acidity, the brightness character of your coffee. And anywhere from 40 to, I don't know, I don't put a lot of alkalinity, but 40 to 150 can be considered like a good range. For my filter coffee, I always go 50 ppm. That's because I go slightly on the lighter side on my roast for lighter. So 50 part per million as calcium carbonate on the buffer is my go-to on my general recipe. Sometimes less, sometimes more, but you can always play. And it's sold with this syringe, so it looks kind of weird. Like if you do that at home and someone doesn't know what you're doing, it looks very weird, but it works, it's all legal. So what you do is you are going to pump 1 milliliter. That will give you 25 part per million. Another milliliter, ml, will give you another 25 ppm. And here you have 50 ppm as calcium carbonate. Be careful, because if you take a TDS meter and you start measuring, you may read somewhere between 40 and 60. That is because a TDS meter measured the milligrams per liter, the total concentration, not as calcium carbonate. Here we have to convert it into calcium carbonate, but I did the math for you, and basically 1 milliliter is 25 ppm. Then we move on, same thing for the general hardness. Now for general hardness, we have 2 main characters, the calcium and the magnesium. And here, the same way, I like to put about 75 to 100 ppm of general hardness, but here I will put just 25 ppm of calcium. So same thing, 1 milliliter, boom, that's 25 ppm of calcium, and about 50 ppm of magnesium. That will give you, that's my water that I use for cupping, but also on my workshop, etc., etc. And here we have 50, 50, and 25, 125 ppm as calcium carbonate. Perfect for your filter coffee. And then you kind of shake it a little bit. You don't have to shake it too much because there's no actual crystal mineral here. It's all liquid. But just make sure it's all even and it's ready to use. It comes with those cards where in the back you can see my recommendation for what water, for what technique, or what sort of area of the flavor spectrum you want to reach. So typically for filter coffee, and if you want more bright and juicy one, this is basically the recipe. I like to stay between 40 and 50 on the buffer, and somewhere between 50 and 75 on the general hardness. If you want still a filter coffee, but more balance with more sweetness and still some juiciness as well, then I will suggest keeping off 50 ppm on the alkalinity, but maybe more on the general hardness, 100 to maybe 125. For espresso, I really like to put more buffer, more alkalinity, because that will really mute down our espresso and avoid this harshness. Besides, obviously, letting your espresso bean rest for a good week or two. But still, I like to start with a good 75, even 100 part per million on the buffer for espresso, and then somewhere between 125 to maximum 200, but usually 125 to 175 on the general hardness. That will give me a lot of minerals, but it will really balance out my espresso, because even our espresso are light to medium, or on the medium side, but more towards light on the color spectrum. But our filter is all on the light roast style. So that's why it's important to have enough alkalinity in your water to avoid any harshness. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. We do some research as well on the impact of calcium and magnesium, and more about that in our Patreon, where I will discuss how more calcium or more magnesium affects the overall profile of the coffee based on the coffee. So water is important. It has its impacts, but not as much as the coffee variety, the coffee process, and the roast profile especially. So that's about it. We just relaunched our Memli Water Kit, and feel free to let me know if you have any question, and see you next time for another video.